I kissed my hot straight best friend when she was drunk, then she surprised me. I never imagined that a single reckless, drunken night would shatter everything I thought I understood about myself and my best friend. My name is Natalie, and for 3 years I've carried a secret I swore I'd never let surface. The crush I've buried on my stunning, supposedly straight best friend, Jordan Carter. I'd hidden it so well, I almost believed it wasn't there at all. I'm a graphic designer who spends her days creating beautiful things for other people, while hiding the most beautiful thing in my own life behind walls of denial and fear. That Friday night started like any other celebration. Jordan Carter got promoted and wanted to hit our usual bar downtown. I figured I'd watch her flirt with random guys like always, while I nursed my drink and pretended my heart didn't ache every time she laughed at their jokes. But alcohol has a way of peeling back layers we spend years building up. When Jordan Carter started talking about being curious about women, I laughed it off as drunk rambling. I should have paid attention to the way her eyes lingered on my lips. Then she kissed me, soft at first, then deeper, and my entire world shifted on its axis. My body responded in ways I couldn't control or deny. Every nerve ending I'd kept dormant suddenly blazed to life. But morning came with awkward silences and her claiming she didn't remember anything. That's when I realized I was trapped between protecting our friendship and exploring feelings that had been slowly consuming me from the inside. The next few months became a dangerous game of stolen moments and hidden desires that would either destroy us or transform us into something neither of us saw coming. Buckle up, get ready, and subscribe for a special surprise tomorrow. The steam from my coffee cup fogged up my glasses as I hunched over my sketchbook at Brew and Bean, our usual Friday morning spot. Round me, couples shared croissants and whispered secrets across tiny tables, their fingers intertwined like they were afraid to let go. I found myself sketching them without realizing it, capturing stolen glances and gentle touches with quick strokes of my pencil. My phone buzzed against the wooden table, pulling me from my artistic trance. Jordan Carter's name lit up the screen with her typical explosion of excitement. Not emergency celebration required. I got the promotion bar crawl tonight. No excuses. Your presence is mandatory for my sanity. I snorted, nearly spilling coffee on my sketchbook. Classic Jordan Carter, turning everything into a dramatic production. I quickly closed the notebook before she could see the drawings if she showed up unexpectedly. The last thing I needed was her asking why I kept sketching random couples when I claimed to be perfectly happy being single. Congratulations. You deserve it. Time and place. I typed back, already knowing I'd spend the evening watching her charm every guy in a 5 meters radius, while I nursed whatever craft beer they had on tap. 8 p.m. at Murphy's. Wear something that makes you feel hot because tonight we're celebrating me, and you're my good luck charm. I stared at the message longer than necessary, that familiar flutter starting in my chest, before I crushed it down. Jordan Carter had this way of making everything sound flirtatious when she was just being her naturally affectionate self. 3 years of friendship had taught me to ignore the way my pulse quickened when she called me her good luck charm or asked me to wear something that made me feel attractive. The rest of my workday dragged by in a blur of client revisions and creative meetings. I worked at a boutique marketing agency downtown, the kind of place where exposed brick walls and Edison bulb lighting were supposed to inspire revolutionary advertising campaigns. Most days, I loved the creative energy, but today, my mind kept wandering to tonight and wondering what Jordan Carter meant by emergency celebration. By 7:30, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, having changed outfits 3 times. The black jeans hugged my curves in all the right places, and the deep green blouse brought out the gold flecks in my brown eyes. I'd left my hair down, the waves falling past my shoulders in a way that felt both casual and deliberate. Minimal makeup, just enough eyeliner to define my almond-shaped eyes and the small silver hoops my sister bought me last Christmas. Murphy's Irish pub buzzed with Friday night energy when I arrived. The smell of fried food and beer mixed with cologne and perfume as bodies pressed together near the bar. I spotted Jordan Carter immediately, her platinum blonde hair catching the dim lighting like a beacon. She wore a red dress that showed off her long legs and the kind of confidence that made every head turn when she walked by. "There's my girl," she squealed, throwing her arms around me in a hug that lasted a beat too long. Her perfume, something floral and expensive, filled my senses as I fought the urge to hold her tighter. "You look incredible. That color is perfect on you." "Thanks. You look pretty amazing yourself. Congratulations on the promotion. By the way, senior marketing coordinator, right?" Her smile lit up the entire bar. Finally, 2 years of grunt work, and they noticed I actually have a brain. First round's on me, obviously. We found a high-top table near the back corner, away from the main crowd, but close enough to feel the energy. Jordan Carter ordered us both Moscow Mules, claiming they were her new signature drink for successful women. The copper mugs felt cold against my palms as we clinked them together. "To new beginnings and taking what we deserve," she said, her green eyes holding mine a moment longer than necessary. "To not letting anyone underestimate us," I replied, taking a larger sip than planned. The ginger beer burned slightly, mixing with the vodka in a way that promised trouble. 3 drinks in, Jordan Carter's laugh became louder, and her touch more frequent. She kept placing her hand on my arm when she made a point, letting her fingers linger against my skin. Each contact sent electricity through me that I tried desperately to ignore. "I have to tell you something," she said during a lull in conversation, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. The bar noise faded into background static as I leaned closer to hear. "What's up?" She twirled the small cocktail stirrer between her fingers, not meeting my eyes. "I've been thinking about things lately. Different things about myself, I mean." My heart started pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it over the music. "What kind of things?" "Women," she said simply, the word hanging between us like a confession. "I've been curious about women." I forced a laugh, the sound coming out sharper than intended. "Jordan Carter, you're drunk. You've dated nothing but guys since I've known you. Remember Ethan and Derek, and that disaster Adrian Cole?" "I know what I've dated," she said, finally looking at me. Her pupils were dilated. Whether from alcohol or something else, I couldn't tell. "But that doesn't mean I haven't wondered." "Wondered about what exactly?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Instead of answering with words, she reached across the table and traced her finger along my jawline. The touch was feather light, but it sent shock waves through my entire nervous system. My breath snagged as she leaned in, close enough that I could catch the gold flecks shimmering in her green eyes. "About this," she murmured, and then her mouth found mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd pictured on all those nights I'd ordered myself not to imagine it. It began soft and tentative, like she was asking for permission. But when I didn't retreat, when my body yielded into hers, despite every rational voice blaring at me to stop, she went deeper. Her palm cradled the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair as she pressed near. My own body betrayed every carefully raised wall I'd built. 3 years of denial collapsed inside half a minute as I kissed her back with a hunger I hadn't known I carried. She tasted of ginger and vodka and something purely her. That spun my head worse than any drink ever could. When we finally came apart, both drawing ragged breaths, the roar of the bar crashed over my awareness like surf. Music, chatter, clinking, glass, everything came roaring back. I looked at her, searching her face for any signal this was real, that it mattered beyond tipsy curiosity. "Jordan Carter," I began, but she was already edging away, her expression flipping from openness to alarm. Her shoulders stiffened, her mouth tightening like a door closing. "I should get home," she said quickly, snatching her purse and dodging my gaze. "Early morning tomorrow." Wait, we should talk about this. Talk about what? She asked, already rising, smoothing her dress with shaking hands. I watched, helpless, as she called a rideshare on her phone, fingers moving with practiced speed. Despite the alcohol, screen glow painting her knuckles pale. Jordan Carter, please. I'll message you tomorrow, she said, brushing a quick kiss to my cheek like she always did, except now my skin burned where her lips had touched. Thanks for celebrating with me tonight. And then she was gone, leaving me seated at the table with 2 empty copper mugs and the lingering flavor of possibility on my lips. I stayed there another 20 minutes trying to make sense of what had just happened. My mouth still tingled from her kiss, and every nerve felt hyper-aware, like someone had turned up the sensitivity on everything. The sensible part of my mind insisted it was only drunken experimenting, that Jordan Carter had simply gotten swept up in the moment. But the way she looked at me before she kissed me, like she'd been considering it for a while, suggested differently. I finally reached my studio apartment around midnight, my head spinning from more than the drinks. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying each second of that kiss. The way her hand slid into my hair, the quiet sound she made when I kissed her back, the panic in her eyes after. My phone stayed stubbornly silent. Saturday came with a hangover and a text that made my stomach drop. Hey babe, last night was fun, but I honestly don't remember much after the 3rd drink. Hope I didn't do anything too embarrassing. Coffee later. I stared at the message for a solid 5 minutes, reading it again and again until the words blurred. She didn't remember, or she was pretending not to remember. Either option felt like a knife twisting in my chest. No worries. Nothing embarrassing. Coffee sounds good. I typed back, each word feeling like a small betrayal of everything I'd felt the night before. We met at Brew and Bean, our usual place, and Jordan Carter acted completely normal. She chatted about her new duties at work, complained about her apartment's broken air conditioner, and asked about my latest design projects like nothing had changed. But I caught her flicking her gaze to my mouth when she thought I wasn't looking. And when I passed her a sugar packet, our fingers touched and she jerked away like I'd burned her. Are you okay? I asked at last, unable to keep up the pretense. You seem jumpy. Just tired. New job stress, you know. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup like she needed warmth, despite the summer heat outside. Plus, I think I drank more than usual last night. Right? The drinking. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. You really don't remember anything specific? For a second, something flickered across her features. Guilt, maybe, or recognition. But it vanished so fast I might have imagined it. Should I remember something specific? She asked, meeting my eyes directly for the first time since she sat down. The question hovered between us, loaded with possibility and risk. We sat with that for a beat, breathing, not speaking. I could push. I could tell her exactly what happened and make her face it. But looking at her now, seeing honest confusion mixed with something almost like fear, I made a choice that would haunt me for weeks. No, I said, taking a sip of coffee. To hide it. Just trying not to read into things. Nothing important. Relief flooded her face so plainly it confirmed what I'd suspected. She remembered all of it. She was too afraid to admit it and too worried about what it might mean for us. The conversation slid to safer topics after that, but the undercurrent of strain never fully faded. When she hugged me goodbye, I noticed she held on just a shade longer than usual, and when she pulled away, her eyes dropped to my lips for the briefest moment before she caught herself. I spent the rest of the weekend analyzing every interaction we'd ever had, searching for signs I might have missed. Had she always looked at me that way? Were those lingering touches during our movie marathons really as innocent as I'd assumed? Or was I just projecting my own feelings onto perfectly normal, friendly behavior? By Monday morning, I'd convinced myself it was a what-time thing. Alcohol-fueled experimentation that meant nothing more than curiosity. Jordan Carter was straight, had always been straight, and would continue being straight regardless of one random kiss in a crowded bar. But Tuesday brought a text that shattered my carefully constructed rationalization. Movie night Friday. Your place. I'll bring the wine and those cookies you like from the bakery near my office. I stared at the message, my heart racing. Movie night at my place meant my small couch, dim lighting, and the kind of forced proximity that had always made me acutely aware of her presence. After what happened at the bar, the thought of being alone with her in my apartment felt both thrilling and terrifying. Sure, 700 p.m. work, I responded, already regretting the decision even as I hit send. Friday couldn't come fast enough and simultaneously felt like it arrived too soon. Friday arrived with the kind of nervous energy that made my hands shake while I cleaned my apartment for the third time. I rearranged the throw pillows on my couch twice, dimmed the lights to what I hoped was casual movie-watching ambience, and changed my outfit for times before settling on soft leggings and an oversized sweater that felt safe and unassuming. At exactly 7 p.m., Jordan Carter knocked on my door with her signature 3 quick raps. When I opened it, she stood there holding a bottle of red wine and a white bakery box, looking effortlessly beautiful in distressed jeans and a cream-colored top that made her skin glow. "I come bearing gifts," she announced, pushing past me into the apartment with her usual confidence. But I noticed the way she avoided prolonged eye contact, focusing instead on setting down the wine and cookies on my kitchen counter. "What movie are we watching?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual as I grabbed wine glasses from my cabinet. "I was thinking something light, maybe that romantic comedy you mentioned wanting to see." She paused, realizing what she'd suggested. "Or we could do action, something with explosions and no feelings involved." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. We settled on a thriller, something neutral that wouldn't force us to sit through love scenes or emotional confessions. I poured generous glasses of wine while she made herself comfortable on my couch, curling her legs under her in the spot she always claimed as hers. 20 minutes into the movie, the tension became unbearable. Every accidental brush of our hands reaching for the wine bottle sent electricity through me. When she shifted positions and her knee bumped against my thigh, I swear I stopped breathing. For a full 10 seconds, the space between us on the couch felt both too vast and impossibly small. "This movie is terrible," she said during a particularly ridiculous action sequence, her words slightly slurred from the wine. "The main character has no motivation and the plot makes zero sense." "Yeah, it's pretty bad," I agreed, though I hadn't been following the storyline at all. My attention was entirely focused on the way she kept tucking her hair behind her ear, a nervous habit I'd noticed over the years, but never really analyzed. Until now, she turned to face me fully, her back against the arm of the couch. "Can I ask you something?" My heart immediately started racing. "Sure." "Do you think people can just suddenly realize they're attracted to someone they never thought about that way before?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I took a large sip of wine to buy myself time, tasting the rich berry flavors without really registering them. "I think attraction is complicated. Sometimes it builds slowly over time, and we just don't notice until something makes us pay attention. But what if it's someone you shouldn't be attracted to?" She pressed, her green eyes searching my face, like someone who's completely wrong for you in every obvious way. "Wrong? How?" My voice came out quieter than intended. "Wrong gender, maybe. Or wrong timing. Or wrong because it could ruin the most important relationship in your life." We stared at each other across the small space between us, the air thick with unspoken words and possibilities. The thriller played on forgotten as something far more dangerous unfolded on my couch. "Jordan Carter," I started, not sure what I planned to say next. "I've been thinking about that night at the bar," she interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. I lied when I said I didn't remember. My wine glass trembled in my hands. "Why did you lie?" because remembering it makes everything complicated. She shifted closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume mixing with the wine on her breath. Because I can't stop thinking about how it felt. How what felt? I asked, even though I knew exactly what she meant. Kissing you. The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them back for days. I can't stop thinking about kissing you, Nat. And that terrifies me because I've never thought about kissing any woman before. But now I can't think about anything else. My carefully constructed world tilted on its axis for the second time in a week. Jordan Carter, you're drinking again. Maybe we shouldn't have this conversation right now. I'm not that drunk, she said, setting down her wine glass with deliberate precision. I'm scared drunk, not stupid drunk. There's a difference. Scared of what? Of ruining us. Of not knowing what I'm doing. Of my family finding out and losing their minds. Of discovering I've been lying to myself about who I am for 27 years. Her voice cracked slightly on the last words. But mostly, I'm scared that if I don't find out what this is, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. The vulnerability in her confession made my chest ache. I wanted to reach for her to tell her that nothing could ruin us. But I also knew that wasn't true. Some lines once crossed changed everything forever. What are you asking me? I said instead. I'm asking if you felt it, too, that night at the bar. Because the way you kissed me back, she trailed off, studying my face like she was trying to read my thoughts. It didn't feel like surprise. It felt like you'd been thinking about it, too. The truth sat between us like a live wire, dangerous and electric. I could lie, protect both of us from the complications that would follow. Or I could be honest and let whatever this was unfold naturally. Consequences be damned. I felt it. I admitted, my voice barely audible over the movie soundtrack. I've been feeling it for longer than I want to admit. Relief flooded her expression, quickly followed by something that looked like hunger. How long does it matter? It matters to me. I took a deep breath, knowing that once I said this out loud, there would be no taking it back. Since about 6 months after we met, maybe longer, I got really good at pretending I didn't. She moved closer, close enough that our knees touched. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because you're straight, Jordan Carter. Because you date men and talk about finding the right guy to settle down with. Because I valued our friendship more. Then I wanted to risk it for feelings you couldn't possibly return. But what if I could return them? She asked, her hand finding mine where it rested on my knee. What if I've been thinking about you the same way, but didn't know how to process it? Her fingers laced with mine, and that small touch sent heat flowing through my whole body. I glanced down at our linked hands, astonished by how right it felt, despite how wrong it ought to have been. I don't know. I admitted, I don't know what any of this means or where it leads from here. Maybe we don't need to know just now, she said, her thumb drawing circles on the back of my hand. Maybe we can simply see what happens. The movie finished without either of us noticing. The credits rolling as we sat in the half-darkness of my living room. The only glow came from the street lamps beyond my window, bathing everything in a warm amber wash that made the moment feel unreal right here. I should probably go, she said. But she didn't release my hand or put space between us. You could stay, I offered, my heart beating hard against my ribs. I mean, you've stayed over before when we've had movie marathons. This feels different, though, doesn't it? Everything feels different now, I confessed. She studied my face in the dim light, and I could see her weighing choices, measuring risks and benefits like she did with her marketing campaigns. Finally, she squeezed my hand. I think I need to go home tonight. Not because I don't want to stay, but because I need to think about this when I'm completely sober. When I'm sure I'm making decisions for the right reasons. Disappointment surged through me, but I understood. This was too important to rush, too significant to gamble on wine and low lighting. and the intoxicating closeness that made clear thought impossible. Okay, I said, though every fiber of me wanted to argue. But Jordan Carter, don't disappear on me again. Don't act like this didn't happen. I won't, she promised, though something in her eyes suggested she wasn't entirely sure she could keep that promise. I walked her to the door, hyper-aware of every movement, every breath. When she turned to say goodbye, we stood closer than friends usually do, but not as close as whatever we were becoming. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For being truthful. For not making me feel crazy for feeling this way. She kissed my cheek again, but this time her lips lingered, warm and soft against my skin. Then she was gone, leaving me in my doorway with my heart racing and my mind spinning with possibilities. The next few weeks turned into an exercise in careful avoidance dressed up as ordinary friendship. Jordan Carter texted regularly, but our conversation stayed surface level, focused on work stress and weekend plans that somehow never materialized. When we did make plans, she'd cancel at the last minute with believable excuses about family obligations or work emergencies. I buried myself in my design projects, staying late at the office to avoid going home to an apartment that still smelled faintly of her perfume. My co-workers probably thought I developed a sudden passion for overtime, but really I just needed the distraction of deadlines and client revisions to keep my mind from drifting to green eyes and soft lips. 3 weeks after movie night, she finally agreed to meet for lunch at a sandwich shop near her office. I arrived early and took a corner table, ordering for both of us since I knew her preferences by heart. When she walked in, something had shifted. She looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping well, and there was a tightness in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. Sorry I'm late, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Meeting ran long. No problem. I ordered your usual. Thanks. She picked at her turkey sandwich without really eating, her attention focused somewhere beyond my shoulder. How's work going? Busy. Good busy. Though. We landed that new client I mentioned. I studied her face, noting the dark circles under her eyes that her concealer couldn't quite hide. How are you handling the new position? It's an adjustment. More responsibility, longer hours. You know how it is. We made small talk for 20 minutes, dancing around everything important while maintaining the facade of normally. But when she reached for her water glass and our hands accidentally touched, the jolt of electricity was undeniable. She pulled back quickly, but not before I saw her breath catch. Jordan Carter, I said carefully. We need to talk about what happened. Nothing happened, she said automatically, then caught herself. I mean, I know something happened, but I don't know what it means yet. It doesn't have to mean anything you're not ready for it to mean. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the war playing out behind her eyes. Want battling fear, curiosity fighting convention, the known safety of our friendship wearing with the terrifying possibility of something more. I've been doing research, she said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Reading articles online, watching videos, trying to understand if this is normal or just some weird phase. And what did you find? That sexuality is more fluid than I thought. That some people don't figure things out until later in life. That attraction doesn't always follow the rules we think it should. She paused, twisting her napkin between her fingers, but also that experimenting with friends can destroy relationships. The weight of that last statement settled between us like a stone. She was right, of course. Whatever this was, it carried the potential to explode the foundation of the most important relationship in my life. So, what do you want to do? I asked. I don't know, she said, and the honest confusion in her voice made my heart ache for her. I've never not known what I wanted before. Nat. I'm the girl who had her career planned out at 16 and her retirement fund started at 22. But this, I have no idea how to navigate this. We don't have to navigate anything right now, I said, reaching across the table to cover her hand with mine. We can just be us best friends who had a moment and are figuring out what it means. She turned her hand palm up under mine, our fingers naturally intertwining. Can it really be that simple? Probably not, I admitted. But we can try. She squeezed my hand, and for the first time in weeks, her smile looked genuine. I've missed you. I've missed us. I've missed you, too. We finished lunch with easier conversation, some of the old dynamic returning as we fell back into familiar patterns of teasing and inside jokes. But underneath it all, the current of attraction hummed quietly, impossible to ignore, even when we weren't acknowledging it directly. When we hugged goodbye outside the sandwich shop, she held me tighter than usual, her face buried in my neck for just a moment longer than friendship required. I felt her breath against my skin and had to fight every instinct, telling me to turn my head and find her lips again. See you soon, she asked when we pulled apart. Definitely. But soon turned into another week of sporadic texts and vague plans that never solidified. I started to wonder if lunch had been her way of saying goodbye to whatever had been building between us, a final test to see if we could go back to being just friends. The answer, it turned out, was a resounding no. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Thursday evening. I opened the door to find her standing in the hallway looking frazzled, her usually perfect hair messed up like she'd been running her hands through it. I've been driving around for an hour trying to talk myself out of coming here, she said without preamble. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. That's the problem. She pushed past me into the apartment, pacing toward my living room like a caged animal. Everything in my life is going exactly according to plan. The promotion is great. My apartment is perfect. I've got 3 different guys texting me asking for dates. Everything should be fine. But it's not fine, I said, closing the door and following her. No. She turned to face me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. It's not fine because every time one of those guys kisses me goodnight, I compare it to kissing you. Every time I try to get excited about a date, I find myself wondering what you're doing instead. I haven't been able to focus on anything for 3 weeks because my brain keeps replaying that night at the bar. My breath caught. Jordan Carter. I know I've been weird and distant and confusing, she continued, the words tumbling out like she'd been rehearsing them. I know I hurt you by pretending I didn't remember, and I know I've been sending mixed signals by avoiding you, but I can't keep pretending this isn't happening. She moved closer, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her green eyes, close enough to count her eyelashes. I can't keep pretending I don't think about you when I'm lying in bed at night. I can't keep pretending I don't look for excuses to text you, or that my heart doesn't race every time you text me back. What are you saying? I whispered, afraid to hope, afraid to assume. I'm saying I want to try, she said, her voice stronger now, more certain. I want to see what this is between us, even if it scares me, even if I don't know what I'm doing or where it leads. Before I could respond, she stepped closer and cupped my face in her hands. This time when she kissed me, there was no alcohol to blame it on, no crowd to hide in, no excuses to fall back on. It was just us, just this moment, just the truth of what we'd been avoiding for sometimes fan weeks. The kiss was different from the one at the bar, slower, more deliberate, filled with intention rather than impulse. I could taste the wine on her lips and feel the slight tremor in her hands as they held my face. When I kissed her back, pouring 3 years of hidden feelings into the contact, she made a soft sound that sent heat racing through my veins. We broke apart slowly, foreheads touching, both breathing harder than the kiss warranted. Was that okay? She asked, vulnerability creeping back into her voice. More than okay, I managed, my hands finding her waist to steady myself. But are you sure about this? Because once we cross this line, we can't uncross it. I've been thinking about crossing this line for weeks, she said, her thumb tracing along my cheekbone. I'm tired of being scared of my own feelings. She kissed me again, deeper this time with a confidence that made my knees weak. I let myself sink into it, into her, into the possibility of everything I dreamed about but never dared hope for. Her hands tangled in my hair, and I pressed closer, wanting to memorize every detail of this moment. When we finally broke apart, for air, she rested her head against my shoulder, and I could feel her heart racing against my chest. This is crazy, she murmured into my neck. Good crazy or bad crazy? I don't know yet. Maybe both. We spent the rest of the evening on my couch talking and kissing, and exploring this new territory between us with careful curiosity. She told me about the research she'd been doing, the late-night internet rabbit holes about sexuality and attraction that had kept her awake for weeks. I told her about the years of buried feelings, the sketches I'd hidden, the way I'd trained myself not to hope for something that seemed impossible. You drew me? She asked when I mentioned the sketches, her eyes lighting up with interest. Sometimes, not in a creepy way. I added quickly, just when you'd be reading or laughing at something on your phone. You have these expressions that are so animated they beg to be captured. Can I see them? I hesitated, knowing that my sketchbook contained 3 years' worth of evidence that my feelings ran much deeper than friendship. But the openness of the evening, the way she was looking at me like I was something precious and worth exploring, made me brave. I retrieved my sketchbook from the bedroom, flipping to the pages I'd never intended anyone to see. Jordan Carter, curled up next to me on the couch as I showed her drawing after drawing, her reactions ranging from surprise to delight to something that looked like wonder. These are beautiful, she said softly, tracing her finger along a sketch of herself laughing. You see me differently than I see myself. How do you see yourself? Loud, chaotic, too much energy, and not enough direction. She turned the page, revealing a drawing of her reading, completely absorbed and peaceful. But in these, I look calm, content, like I belong. Exactly where I am. You do belong exactly where you are. She looked up at me, something shifting in her expression. Even here, even with you like this, especially here, with me like this. She kissed me then, soft and grateful and full of promise. But when her phone buzzed with a text from her sister asking about family dinner plans, reality crept back in. She pulled away, the spell broken by reminders of the world outside my apartment. I should go, she said, though her body language suggested she wanted to stay. I need time to process this, to figure out what I'm ready for. I nodded, understanding, but unable to hide my disappointment. Will you tell me what you decide? Or are we going back to the avoidance thing? No more avoiding, she promised, gathering her purse and jacket. I just need a few days to wrap my head around this around us. Take all the time you need, I said, walking her to the door. I'm not going anywhere. She paused in the doorway, turning back to look at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Nat, thank you for being patient with me. I know this isn't fair to you. All this back and forth. It's not about fair. It's about what's right for both of us. She kissed me one more time, quick and sweet, before disappearing into the hallway. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart still racing from everything that had just happened. The next few days passed in a strange limbo. Jordan Carter texted sporadically, but her messages felt different now, charged with new meaning. When she sent a photo of her lunch, I found myself staring at her hands holding the sandwich, remembering how those same hands had felt cupping my face. When she complained about her annoying coworker, I could hear her voice in my head with perfect clarity, remembering the way it had sounded when she whispered my name. Thursday brought a text that made my stomach flip. Dinner tomorrow, my place. I'll cook. Jordan Carter cooking was serious business. She only cooked for people she cared about, usually for holidays or special occasions. The invitation felt weighted with significance. I wasn't sure I was ready to unpack. "I'd love that," I replied, then immediately second-guessed every word choice. Friday couldn't arrive fast enough. I spent the entire day distracted at work, checking my phone every few minutes for updates from Jordan Carter. When 5 o'clock finally came, I rushed home to change into something that struck the right balance between casual and attractive. Her apartment always smelled like vanilla candles and expensive coffee. When she opened the door, she was wearing a simple black dress that hugged her curves and made my mouth go dry. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders, and she'd applied just enough makeup to enhance her natural beauty. "You look incredible," I said before I could stop myself. "So do you," she replied, her cheeks flushing pink. "Come in. I made your favorite." She'd prepared chicken parmesan with homemade pasta, the kind of meal that took hours and required actual skill. The dining table was set with real plates instead of her usual paper ones, and she lit candles that cast flickering shadows on the walls. "This is amazing," I said after the first bite. "When did you have time to make all this?" "I took a half day," she admitted, refilling our wine glasses. "I wanted tonight to be special." "Special? How?" She set down her fork and met my eyes across the table. "Special like the kind of night where we're honest about what we want, where we stop dancing around this thing between us and decide what we're going to do about it." My pulse quickened. "And what do you want to do about it?" "I want to explore it," she said, her voice steady despite the nervousness I could see in her eyes. "I want to see where this goes, even if it's complicated, even if it changes everything." "What about your family? Your fear of ruining our friendship?" "My family will have to adjust if they want to keep me in their lives. And as for our friendship," she paused, reaching across the table to take my hand, "I think we've already changed it. The question now is whether we change it into something better, or let fear turn it into something awkward and broken." The candles flickered as we stared at each other, the weight of decision heavy in the air between us. I could feel us balanced, on the edge of something that would alter the trajectory of both our lives. "So, what happens now?" I asked. "Now we see what it feels like to stop hiding," she said, bringing my hand to her lips and pressing a soft kiss to my knuckles. The gesture was simple, intimate, and full of promise. For the first time in weeks, the future felt full of possibility instead of uncertainty. The weeks that followed our dinner became a delicate dance of stolen moments and careful secrecy. We developed an unspoken language of meaningful glances and accidental touches that felt more intimate than anything I'd experienced with previous relationships. When Jordan Carter would brush past me in coffee shop lines, her hand would graze my lower back for just a second longer than necessary. During our lunch meetings, she'd lean across the table to make a point, close enough that I could feel her breath against my cheek. Our first real kiss as whatever we were becoming happened on a Tuesday evening in my office. Building's empty parking garage. I'd been working late on a campaign deadline when she texted asking if I wanted company. 20 minutes later, she appeared with takeout Thai food and that smile that made my heart skip beats. We sat in my car eating pad Thai from styrofoam containers, talking about everything except the electric tension crackling between us. When she reached over to wipe a drop of sauce from the corner of my mouth, the simple gesture turned into something more. Her thumb lingered against my skin, and suddenly we were kissing with a hunger that had been building for weeks. "I've been wanting to do that since dinner at my place," she whispered against my lips. "What took you so long?" I teased, though my voice came out breathier than intended. "Courage," she admitted, and waiting for the right moment when we wouldn't be interrupted. The parking garage became our sanctuary. Late evenings, when my co-workers had gone home and hers were focused on their own deadlines, we'd meet in the concrete anonymity of Level 3, Section B. Sometimes we talk for hours about everything and nothing, sharing stories from our childhoods and dreams for the future. Other times, we'd barely speak, communicating instead through touches and kisses that left us both breathless and wanting more. 3 weeks into our secret arrangement, Jordan Carter surprised me by showing up at my apartment on a Saturday morning with coffee and pastries from the expensive bakery across town. "I thought we could spend the day together," she said, settling onto my couch like she belonged there. "No rushing off to work or family obligations. Just us." We spent the morning on my couch, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched cooking shows and made fun of pretentious chefs. The domesticity of it felt dangerous in the best possible way. When she absently traced patterns on my arm while commenting on someone's terrible plating, I had to remind myself to breathe. "Can I ask you something?" she said during a commercial break, tilting her head to look up at me always. "When did you know about yourself? I mean, about liking women." I considered the question, thinking back to high school crushes I'd dismissed, and college friendships that had felt charged with something I couldn't name at the time. I think I always knew on some level, but I was really good at explaining it away, telling myself I just admired certain women or wanted to be their friend. It wasn't until I met you that I couldn't deny it anymore. Because of me, because of how I felt around you, how my whole day would improve just from getting a text from you, how I'd find excuses to extend our time together. I played with her hair, marveling at how soft it felt between my fingers, how I'd watch you laugh and feel this ache in my chest that had nothing to do with friendship. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. "I keep waiting for this to feel wrong," she said finally, for some internal alarm to go off, telling me I'm making a mistake. "But it doesn't. Being with you feels like the most natural thing in the world." "Does that scare you?" "Terrifies me," she admitted, but not enough to stop. That afternoon, she helped me reorganize my closet, which turned into her trying on half my wardrobe and modeling outfits with exaggerated runway poses that had me laughing until my sides hurt. When she emerged from my bedroom wearing one of my oversized hoodies, something shifted in the air between us. "This smells like you," she said, inhaling the fabric. "Like that vanilla body spray you wear in something else. That's just uniquely you. You can keep it if you want." Her eyes softened. "Really? Really? It looks better on you anyway." She crossed the room and kissed me then, slow and deep and full of gratitude that had nothing to do with clothing. When we broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine. "I should probably go home soon," she said, though she made no move to step away. "You could stay for dinner. I could order pizza." "Pizza sounds perfect." We spent the evening curled together on my couch, sharing slices of pepperoni pizza and trading stories about our most embarrassing work moments. When she laughed at my impression of our boss trying to understand social media trends, her whole body shook against mine, and I felt a contentment I'd never experienced before. But as the night wore on, the weight of our secrecy began pressing down on us. Every time her phone buzzed with texts from friends asking about her weekend plans, every time I caught her glancing at the time, I was reminded that whatever this was existed only in the shadows. "I should really go home," she said around 11, though she'd been saying the same thing for the past hour without moving. "I know," I said, tightening my arms around her. "I just like having you here. I like being here, too." That's the problem. She left that night with my hoodie and a promise to text me when she got home safely. But lying in bed afterward, surrounded by the lingering scent of her perfume, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were living on borrowed time. The pattern continued for another month. Secret meetings in parking garages, stolen afternoons at my apartment, carefully orchestrated lunch dates that looked like friendship but felt like so much more. We developed elaborate cover stories for the time we spent together, explaining away our absences to mutual friends and family members who might ask too many questions. The lies came easier than I expected, but they also felt heavier each time. When my coworker Tara asked why I'd been so happy lately, I blamed it on a new design project instead of admitting that I was falling deeper in love with my best friend every day. When Jordan Carter's sister called during one of our movie nights, Jordan Carter stepped onto my balcony to take the call, lowering her voice so her sister wouldn't hear me in the background. I told her I was at home reading, she said when she came back inside, her expression troubled. I hate lying to her. You don't have to lie, I said carefully. You could tell people we're spending time together. We always have, but not like this. Not with me wearing your clothes and falling asleep on your couch and kissing you goodbye. She sat down next to me, close enough to touch, but suddenly feeling miles away. She'd know something was different. Would that be such a terrible thing? The question hung between us, heavy with implications neither of us was ready to fully address. Jordan Carter's family was traditional, conservative, the timely, being kind of people who asked pointed questions about when she was going to settle down with a nice man and start having babies. Coming out to them would mean confronting expectations and disappointments that she'd been carrying her entire life. I'm not ready, she said quietly. I know that's not fair to you, but I need more time to figure out how to handle that conversation. I'm not asking you to come out to your family, I said, taking her hand. I'm just asking if there's a middle ground between complete secrecy and full disclosure. Maybe telling one or two close friends. People who would support you no matter what. Like who? Your sister. She loves you. And my friend Priya Mehta from college. She's been asking why I've been so distracted lately anyway. Jordan Carter considered this, chewing on her lower lip in concentration. Maybe eventually, but not yet. I wanted to push to ask when she thought she might be ready, but I could see the panic starting to creep into her expression. Instead, I squeezed her hand and changed the subject to safer territory. 2 weeks later, everything came to a head in the most unexpected way. I was grabbing lunch at the deli near my office when I spotted Jordan Carter across the street, walking hand in hand with a tall brunette I didn't recognize. They were laughing about something, heads closed together in a way that looked intimate and comfortable. My stomach dropped as I watched them disappear round the corner. She hadn't mentioned meeting anyone new. We'd talked on the phone just the night before about weekend plans that supposedly involved her catching up on work and me organizing my portfolio. The sight of her with someone else felt like a physical blow, especially when she'd been so insistent about keeping our relationship secret. I spent the rest of the day consumed by jealousy and confusion, checking my phone every 5 minutes for a text that never came. When she finally called that evening, her voice sounded strained. Hey, how was your day? She asked like nothing had happened. Interesting. I saw you downtown around lunchtime. You looked busy. Silence stretched between us and I could practically hear her trying to figure out how much I'd seen. That was my cousin Sophie Hale, she said finally. She's visiting from Portland for a few days. I meant to mention it, but things have been crazy at work, right? Your cousin. I didn't bother hiding the skepticism in my voice. Nat, it really was my cousin. I can show you pictures if you want proof. The defensiveness in her tone told me she was telling the truth, but it also highlighted something that had been bothering me for weeks. The constant need for explanations and alibis. The way she jumped to justify every interaction that might be misinterpreted. It's not about proof, I said. It's about the fact that my first thought when I saw you with another woman was panic that you were seeing someone else. It's about how exhausting it is to live like this, always worried about who might see us together, or what they might think. I know it's hard, she said softly, but we agreed to take this slow. Taking it slow is different from hiding it completely. I feel like I'm your dirty little secret. Jordan Carter. Someone you experiment with when it's convenient, but pretend doesn't exist when real life intrudes. That's not fair. You know this isn't just experimentation for me anymore. Do I know that? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like you get to have all the benefits of a relationship with me, while maintaining the safety of being seen as straight to everyone else. You get to keep your options open, while I sit here falling deeper in love with someone who might decide this was all just a phase." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Raw and honest and more vulnerable than I'd intended to be. "You're falling in love with me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm already in love with you," I corrected. "I have been for years. This isn't some casual experiment for me, Jordan Carter. This is everything I've wanted and everything I'm terrified of losing." The silence that followed felt endless. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could imagine her sitting in her pristine apartment trying to process what I just confessed. "I need to see you," she said finally. "Can I come over?" "Yes." She arrived 20 minutes later, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. We sat on my couch, facing each other, the space between us feeling vast despite the physical proximity. "I'm sorry," she said. "You're right about the hiding. I've been so focused on protecting myself that I didn't think about how it was affecting you. I don't need you to be out and proud immediately," I said. "I just need to feel like this matters to you as much as it matters to me." "It matters more than anything," she said, reaching for my hands. "These past 2 months have been the happiest I've ever been, even with all the complications. When I'm with you, I feel like I'm finally being honest about who I am." "Then why does it feel like you're ashamed of us?" "Because I'm ashamed of being scared," she said, tears spilling over. "I'm ashamed that at 27 years old, I'm still worried about disappointing my parents. I'm ashamed that I care so much about what people think that I'm willing to hurt the person I care about most just to avoid difficult conversations." I moved closer, wiping away her tears with my thumbs. "Being scared doesn't make you weak, Jordan Carter. This is huge for you. I get that. But it's not fair to you. You've been out since college. You've done the hard work of figuring out who you are. I'm asking you to go backward, to hide who you are because I'm not brave enough to be honest about who I'm becoming. So, what do we do?" She took a shaky breath. "We find a middle ground. We start small. Maybe I tell my sister this weekend and you tell Priya Mehta. We stop meeting in parking garages like we're having an affair and start acting like people who care about each other." Hope bloomed to my chest. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure that I don't want to lose you because I was too scared to fight for something real." She kissed me softly, tasting like tears and promises. "I'm sure that you're worth being brave for." The next few weeks felt like stepping into sunlight after months in shadows. Jordan Carter told her sister Sophie Hale during their weekly phone call, and while the conversation was awkward and full of questions, Sophie Hale's response was ultimately supportive. She confessed she'd suspected something was different about Jordan Carter lately, and was just happy to see her so genuinely happy. I told Priya Mehta during our regular coffee date, and her reaction was perfectly Priya Mehta. She squealed loudly enough to make other customers stare, then demanded to know every detail about how it had started and why I'd kept it secret for so long. "I knew something was different about you," she said, stirring sugar into her latte with enthusiasm. "You've had this glow lately, like someone who's getting regular attention from someone they actually care about." Was I that obvious? Only to someone who's known you since freshman year. You've never looked at any of your previous girlfriends the way your face lights up when you talk about Jordan Carter. Having even to people know about us made everything feel more real, more legitimate. When Jordan Carter texted me during work meetings, I didn't have to hide my smile from coworkers. When she called me on random Tuesday evenings just to hear my voice, I could tell Priya Mehta about it without editing out the romantic details. But the secrecy still weighed on us in unexpected ways. When Jordan Carter's work friends invited her to happy hour and automatically assumed I wasn't included, she had to choose between maintaining appearances and defending our relationship. When my boss's wife threw a dinner party and told me to bring a +1, I had to decline, rather than explain why I couldn't bring the person I was actually dating. The breaking point came during Jordan Carter's birthday party in late October. She'd insisted on keeping it small, just close friends and a few co-workers at her favorite rooftop bar downtown. I spent an hour getting ready, choosing a black dress that hugged my curves and made me feel confident and beautiful. When I arrived, Jordan Carter's face lit up in a way that made the effort worthwhile. "You look stunning," she whispered when she hugged me, her lips brushing against my ear in a way that sent shivers down my spine. The party was exactly what I'd expected. Good music, expensive cocktails, and Jordan Carter at the center of attention, charming everyone with stories and laughter. For part 2, subscribe to our channel and ring the bell.